No one comes close to the Mafia boss's Rottweiler dogs until Maid's daughter did the unimaginable. Everyone on the Moretti estate knew one absolute rule: never go near Dante and Nero. 3 professional trainers hospitalized. 2 security guards scarred for life. 1 foolish delivery driver who got too close? He still can't use his right arm. These weren't just guard dogs. They were 140-pound killing machines wrapped in black fur and rage. Vincent Moretti, the most feared man in the city, couldn't even walk past their kennel without reinforced steel between them. He'd spent $200,000 trying to tame them. Every expert failed. Every method backfired. But then, on a cold November morning, something happened that would haunt Vincent for the rest of his life. Rosa, his head housekeeper, brought her 8-year-old daughter Mia to work. Just for one day. What could go wrong? Everything. Within 2 hours, this little girl in a faded pink jacket did something that would make grown men question everything they thought they knew about power, control, and loyalty. What Mia revealed next would bring a Mafia boss to his knees and prove that the most dangerous person in the room isn't always the one everyone fears. Stay with me until the end, because what happens in that courtyard will shatter everything you think you understand about true strength. But first, I would like you to help me reach 1,000 subscribers by hitting that like button and subscribe, because stories like this don't come around often. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's begin.
The Moretti estate sat like a crown on the hillside, all white marble and black iron, beautiful and cold as a mausoleum. Inside, Vincent Moretti's empire hummed with quiet efficiency. Guards at every corner, surveillance cameras tracking every shadow, luxury masking the darkness beneath. But even empires have cracks. And Vincent's crack had teeth. In the south wing courtyard, behind reinforced steel fencing and industrial-grade locks, 2 Rottweilers paced like caged thunder. Dante and Nero. 140 pounds each of scarred muscle and burning rage. Their black coats bore the evidence of their past. Slashes across Dante's shoulder, a chunk missing from Nero's ear, eyes that held nothing but violence and broken trust. Everyone on the estate knew the rule. Stay away from the south wing. 3 professional trainers had learned why. The first was a military canine handler, cocky with confidence and a shock collar in his hand. "I've trained dogs for war zones," he'd said, stepping into the kennel. 15 seconds later, Dante's jaws clamped around the collar itself, ripping it free. The handler barely made it through a window, leaving behind a boot and his pride. Cost to Vincent: $25,000. Result: nothing but blood on marble. The second was a celebrity dog whisperer. $75,000 just to show up, with a film crew and talk of alpha dominance. He'd approached Nero with commanding energy, trying to establish control through presence alone. Nero's response was immediate and primal. The man found himself pinned against the fence, 140 pounds of fury at his throat, breathing his last prayers. Vincent had to fire a warning shot into the ground. The dogs scattered. The whisperer fled. The cameras caught everything. The video never saw daylight. Vincent made sure of that. The third tried science. Chemical sedation, behavioral modification, controlled environments. He'd pumped them full of enough tranquilizers to drop a horse. It should have worked. It didn't. The drugs only made them unpredictable. Nero and Dante tore through the reinforced kennel like paper, destroyed $50,000 worth of specialized equipment, and cornered the specialist in a storage shed for 3 hours. By the time Vincent's men extracted him, the man was catatonic with fear. Vincent stood on his balcony now, staring down at the courtyard where his monsters paced endless circles. His fingers gripped the railing until his knuckles went white. The most powerful man in the city, brought low by 2 animals he couldn't break. His phone buzzed. "Marcus, the dealer. Still want those dogs handled, boss?" Vincent's jaw tightened. He'd paid Marcus $80,000 for these Rottweilers, told they were the best guard dogs money could buy. Loyal, trainable, elite protection. He'd gotten demons instead. "Tomorrow morning," Vincent said, his voice flat. "Come take them." "Understood. It'll be quick. They won't feel." Vincent ended the call. He stood there in the falling darkness, watching Dante and Nero prowl their prison. Somewhere in his chest, something twisted. Not quite guilt, not quite regret. Something closer to defeat. Vincent Moretti didn't lose. But he'd lost this battle. Tomorrow the dogs would be gone. Tomorrow this chapter would close. He turned away from the balcony, never knowing that at that very moment, 3 miles across the city, a woman named Rosa was making a desperate phone call. And her 8-year-old daughter Mia was packing a worn pink jacket and a peanut butter sandwich. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight, in that courtyard, 2 broken animals waited for mercy they'd never known. And a man who'd forgotten mercy walked away. Rosa's hands shook as she answered the phone during her lunch break at the diner. Her second job of the day. Mrs. Delgado. This is Principal Harris. Mia's been suspended. 3 days. You need to pick her up immediately. Rosa's heart dropped. Suspended? Mia doesn't fight. She broke a boy's nose defending another student. We have a zero-tolerance policy. 20 minutes later, Rosa stood in the principal's office, staring at her daughter. Mia sat silent, small hands folded in her lap, wearing that faded pink jacket 3 sizes too big. Her grandmother's jacket, the one she'd worn every day since Abuela died. He was hurting Tommy, Mia finally whispered. Someone had to stop him. Rosa closed her eyes. She couldn't afford this. Not now. Not with rent due in 30 days and the landlord already threatening eviction. Not with 3 jobs barely keeping them afloat. That evening, Rosa made 17 phone calls. Every babysitter was busy. Every neighbor unavailable. Her sister was out of state. She had no choice. At 5 a.m. the next morning, Rosa knelt before her daughter in their cramped apartment. Mija, listen to me. You stay in the storage room. You read your books. You draw in your notebook. You do not wander. Understand? Mia nodded, clutching her worn sketchbook. Pages filled with careful drawings of stray cats, pigeons, dogs she'd seen at the park. At the Moretti estate, Vincent met Rosa at the service entrance. His eyes landed on Mia immediately. Rosa. I'm sorry, Mr. Moretti. I had no choice. She'll stay in the storage room. You won't even know she's here. Vincent's jaw tightened. Keep her away from the south wing. I mean it, Rosa. Those dogs, he stopped himself, glancing at Mia's curious eyes. Just keep her away. Rosa led Mia to a small storage room off the kitchen. Barely 8 feet square, 1 window overlooking the back courtyard. She spread out coloring books, snacks, explicit instructions. Promise me you'll stay here. I promise, Mama. Rosa disappeared into the east wing with her cleaning cart, glancing back 3 times. Mia sat alone in the quiet room. She opened her notebook, started drawing. But then something caught her eye through the window. 2 massive black shapes, pacing behind a chain-link fence. She pressed her face to the glass. Dante and Nero moved in endless circles, heads low, eyes scanning for threats that never came. They looked like the stray dog she'd found last winter. The one that growled at everyone until she'd sat with him for hours, sharing her sandwich, not moving, just being there. Then she saw it. Nero's right back leg. The way he favored it. The slight limp. Everyone else saw monsters. Mia saw pain. She looked at her backpack. Inside was her lunch, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, a granola bar. The only food she'd brought. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Mija, the hungriest souls aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the quiet ones, pacing in circles, waiting for someone to notice. Mia stood up. While Rosa scrubbed floors in the east wing, Mia made a decision that would either save 2 lives, or end hers. Mia's footsteps whispered across the marble hallway like secrets. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she didn't stop. The pink jacket hung heavy on her small shoulders as she clutched her backpack tighter. She found the door to the back courtyard unlocked. 20 feet away, Dante and Nero prowled the fence line, their massive bodies coiled with tension, backs turned to her. In Vincent's office, a security guard monitoring the cameras sat up straight. Boss. The storage room. The kid's gone. Vincent's eyes snapped to the screen. Empty room. Open door. Find her. Now. 3 floors down, Rosa was polishing silverware when her phone buzzed. She saw Vincent's name and her blood turned to ice. Rosa, where's your daughter? The storage room. She's not there. Rosa dropped the phone and ran. Mia knelt by the chain-link fence, her small fingers trembling as she unzipped her backpack. She pulled out her lunch, the peanut butter sandwich wrapped in wax paper, the only meal she'd brought. She unwrapped it carefully, broke off a piece, slid it under the gate. Dante's head snapped around like a gunshot. His eyes locked on her. Black, burning, feral. Get away from there. A guard's voice shattered the silence from a window above. Both dogs charged. 280 pounds of violence and fury. Claws tearing up dirt, teeth bared, closing the distance in seconds. The sound of their growls vibrated through the ground beneath Mia's knees. Rosa burst through the courtyard door. Mia. Vincent appeared on the balcony, hand reaching for his gun. Guards poured from 3 entrances, weapons drawn. The dogs were 10 feet away. 5 feet. 3. Nero stopped first, inches from the fence. So close Mia could feel his breath on her face. He sniffed the air. The sandwich. Her. His eyes met hers, not with rage but something else. Something ancient and wounded and searching. You're hungry too, aren't you? Mia whispered. Dante skidded to a halt beside Nero, dirt spraying. His growl died in his throat. Silence crashed over the courtyard like a wave. Both dogs sat. Their haunches hit the ground in perfect unison, eyes fixed on the tiny girl in the too big pink jacket. Mia's hands shook as she slid the rest of her sandwich under the fence. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Nero leaned forward, took the bread gently between his teeth, chewed slowly, never breaking eye contact. Dante waited his turn. When Mia extended her small hand through the chain link, offering the last piece, both dogs ate from her palm with a gentleness that defied everything they'd ever been. Rosa collapsed against the doorframe, sobbing, not from fear anymore, but from something she couldn't name. On the balcony, Vincent Moretti stood frozen, gun half drawn and forgotten. His hands were shaking for the first time in 20 years. That's impossible, he whispered. The guards stared, weapons lowering. And in that courtyard, an 8-year-old girl sat cross-legged before 2 monsters, her fingers scratching behind Nero's scarred ears while Dante's massive head rested against the fence near her knee. What Vincent witnessed next would haunt him forever, because Mia did something that broke every rule of nature and power. She smiled at the dogs and said, "I'll come back tomorrow." And their tails began to wag. Rosa reached the fence, her hands grasping for Mia's shoulders. "Mija, we need to go. Now." "Mama, wait." Mia didn't take her eyes off the dogs. "They're hurt." "What?" Mia pointed through the chain link. "Look. Nero's limping. And Dante has that big scar on his shoulder. Nobody's helping them." Vincent descended the stone steps with 4 armed guards flanking him, their boots striking marble like hammer blows. The dogs' heads swiveled toward the approaching men. Low growls rumbled from their chests, lips curling back to reveal teeth like daggers. Mia stood quickly, placing herself between the fence and the advancing men. "Don't come closer," she said, her small voice cutting through the tension. "You're scaring them." Vincent stopped 10 feet away. His jaw was tight, his eyes hard. "Little girl, step away from the fence. Now." Mia tilted her head, studying him the way she studied wounded animals in her neighborhood. "Why? Because you're afraid of them? Or because they're afraid of you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Vincent froze. In 30 years, no one had spoken to him like that. No one had looked at him with such clear, unflinching honesty. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Behind the fence, Dante and Nero had stopped growling. They watched Mia, heads tilted, as if waiting for her next move. She turned back to them, then walked toward the gate. "Mia, no." Rosa's scream tore from her throat. "Don't touch that lock," a guard shouted. "She'll be killed." But Mia's small fingers were already working the latch. The metal clinked. The gate swung open with a rusty groan. Every guard raised their weapon. Vincent's hand shot up. "Nobody fires unless I give the order." Mia stepped through the opening into the kennel. Time seemed to stop. Dante and Nero could close the distance in a heartbeat. Could tear her apart before anyone could react. 280 pounds of muscle and rage and broken trust, and one tiny girl in a faded pink jacket. They didn't move. Mia walked between them, her steps small and steady. She knelt on the dirt, her jacket pooling around her like melted bubblegum. She reached up, placed one small hand on Dante's massive head, the other on Nero's. "Nobody's going to hurt you anymore," she whispered. "I promise." For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then Dante lowered himself to the ground. His enormous body folded until his scarred head rested in her lap. Nero followed, his injured leg stretching out carefully as he lay beside her. The visual punched through every witness like a fist. An 8-year-old girl surrounded by legendary killers, their 140-pound bodies pressed against her like she was their anchor in a storm. And then, for the first time since Vincent had owned them, their tails began to wag. Slow at first, then faster. Rosa fell to her knees, hands covering her mouth, sobbing. Not from fear. From something deeper, relief and wonder and the desperate, aching realization that her daughter understood brokenness better than any adult ever could. A guard lowered his weapon, his hands shaking. Another whispered, "Jesus Christ." Vincent stood paralyzed, the gun in his belt suddenly feeling like a child's toy. He'd built an empire on fear, on control, on making people believe he was untouchable, unstoppable, unmovable. And here was a child, an 8-year-old girl in a dead woman's jacket, showing him that everything he believed about power was a lie. Mia looked up at him through the fence. "They're not bad, Mr. Moretti. They're just scared. Like me when my papa left." Vincent's breath caught in his throat. As he watched this child sit peacefully with his monsters, one question tore through him like a bullet. "What does she know that I don't?" Vincent's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "How did you do that?" Mia looked up from where she sat, Dante's head still heavy in her lap. Her fingers traced the raised scar tissue on his shoulder. "I've been coming here for 3 months." Rosa's head snapped toward her daughter. "What? 3 months?" Mia repeated softly. "Every time Mama works the night shift and stays overnight. After everyone goes to sleep, I sneak out of the storage room. Mija. There's a gap in the back fence, behind the gardener's shed. The guards never check it." Mia's voice was matter-of-fact, like she was explaining how to tie shoelaces. "I've been visiting Dante and Nero every week, bringing them leftovers from my dinner, talking to them." Vincent stepped closer to the fence, his shadow falling across her. "Talking to them. Learning their language," Mia said, meeting his eyes. "They're not mean, Mr. Moretti. They're scared." "Scared?" Vincent's laugh was bitter. "Those dogs put 3 men in the hospital." "Scared things bite," Mia said simply. "But if you show them you're safe, they remember kindness. They remember someone cared." The words hit Vincent like a physical blow. Mia's hand stilled on Dante's head. Her voice grew quieter. "When my papa left, I was angry too. I broke things. I hurt people. The kids at school were afraid of me." She looked down at Nero, whose eyes were half closed in contentment. "But Grandma never hit me. Never yelled. She just sat on the floor with me while I cried. Every night for a year. She didn't try to fix me or stop my anger. She just sat with me until I was ready to be soft again." Rosa pressed her hand to her mouth, fresh tears streaming. "That's all they needed," Mia whispered. "Someone to sit with them." Vincent's hands clenched at his sides. "But I gave them everything. Food, space, the best trainer's money could buy. You gave them everything but the one thing they needed." Mia's eyes, those impossibly clear 8-year-old eyes, held his without flinching. "To believe you cared about them, not controlling them." The distinction shattered something inside Vincent's chest. "Can I show you something?" Mia reached for her backpack, pulled out her worn notebook. She flipped through pages, each one carefully filled. Dante's scars, drawn with heartbreaking detail. Nero's injured leg, the exact angle of his limp. Their sleeping positions. The way they paced. The sounds they made when they dreamed. "I've been studying them," Mia explained. "Watching. Listening. Learning what hurts them and what helps." She turned to the last page. Vincent's breath caught. It was a drawing of Dante and Nero, but different. Younger. Happier. Surrounded by 4 tiny puppies with clumsy paws and oversized ears. "They never had a family," Mia said softly. "So I drew them one. The one they should have had." A single tear escaped down Vincent's cheek before he could stop it. He turned away quickly, but not quick enough. Rosa saw it. The guards saw it. The most feared man in the city, crying over a child's drawing. "Thank you for showing me," he managed, his voice rough. Mia nodded, closing the notebook carefully, tucking it back like a treasure. Vincent pulled out his phone, his hands unsteady. He scrolled to a contact he'd planned to call that morning for a very different reason. Marcus. The dealer. "I need to know something," Vincent said into the phone, his eyes never leaving the girl and the dogs. Where did they come from? The truth this time. Marcus hesitated. "Boss, you don't want to. Tell me." The story Marcus told would haunt Vincent forever. But Mia didn't know the darkest truth yet. And when Vincent made that phone call that afternoon, the real story of Dante and Nero would surface. A story so brutal it would bring even a Mafia boss to his knees. Marcus's voice crackled through the phone, hesitant and heavy. "Boss, you really don't want to know." "Tell me," Vincent repeated, his knuckles white around the device. A long exhale. Then, 3 years ago. Underground fighting ring. Abandoned warehouse on the docks. Concrete stained with blood. The stench of death and diesel fuel. Dante and Nero in their prime. Younger, stronger, trained to kill or be killed. They were champions. Undefeated. Bred and beaten and starved into weapons that made men rich. Then Nero's mate got pregnant. She had 4 puppies in that ring. Tiny, helpless things with unopened eyes. The owner saw weakness. Saw Nero protecting them instead of fighting. So he made a decision. He killed all 4 puppies in front of Nero and Dante. Wrapped their small bodies in a red blanket. Threw them in the incinerator while both dogs watched, chained to the wall, howling. To keep them angry, Marcus said. To keep them fighting. But something broke instead. Both dogs snapped. Tore through their chains. Mauled 3 handlers before escaping into the night. Police raided the ring 2 days later. Found Dante and Nero half-starved. Hiding in a drainage pipe. "I pulled them out," Marcus continued. "Told you they were elite guard dogs. You paid me $80,000. I thought someone with your resources could handle them." Vincent's hand trembled. The phone nearly slipped from his grip. "I bought traumatized survivors," he whispered, and tried to beat them into submission. In the courtyard, Mia sat with Dante's massive head in her lap, her small fingers tracing his scars with the gentleness of someone who understood pain. "I became the same monster they escaped from," Vincent said, his voice cracking. "Shock collars. Dominance. Control. I did to them exactly what their first owner did." Marcus was silent. Vincent ended the call. He looked down at the scene below, this tiny girl in a faded pink jacket, surrounded by 280 pounds of broken trust, offering them something no amount of money ever could. Softness. "They dream about their babies," Mia said suddenly, not looking up. "Nero cries in his sleep." Rosa, still kneeling nearby, wiped her eyes. "How do you know that, Mija?" "Because I dream about my papa the same way." Mia's voice was barely a whisper. "I know what missing someone sounds like." Vincent descended the steps slowly. Stopped at the open gate. That's when he saw it. The pink jacket. Faded, worn, 3 sizes too big. The same shade as the blanket that had wrapped those puppies. That's why Dante reacted so strongly the first time. Why Nero stopped charging. The color triggered their deepest trauma, but Mia's presence transformed it. She represented both their loss and their hope for something soft in a world of violence. Vincent's tears fell freely now. No shame, no pride, just grief for what he'd done. A guard turned away, unable to watch his boss break. Vincent knelt at the gate's edge, eye level with the child who'd dismantled his empire with kindness. Rosa, his voice was raw. I need to ask you something. Rosa looked up, her own face wet with tears. Can Mia teach me? What happened next would become legend on the streets. Because Vincent Moretti, the man who'd never bowed to anyone, was about to become a student to an 8-year-old girl. Vincent sat cross-legged in the dirt, 10 feet from Dante and Nero. His tailored suit collected dust. His pride collected wounds. Dante's lip curled, exposing teeth. A low growl rumbled. Vincent's hand instinctively moved toward control. Toward dominance, toward force. You're thinking about yourself, Mia said from outside the fence. Think about them. Vincent's jaw clenched. I don't know how. Then tell me about something that hurt you. Really hurt you. Vincent's throat tightened. My brother. He died when I was 12. Car accident. My father blamed me for not stopping him from driving that night. Did your father ever sit with you? Let you be sad? No. He told me to be strong. To never show weakness. Mia nodded slowly. Now you understand them. Something cracked open in Vincent's chest. Vincent brought prime steak. Expensive. Perfect. Dante and Nero wouldn't touch it. Frustration boiled through him. He stood to leave. That's why they don't trust you, Mia called out. You quit when it's hard. Vincent froze. Turned back. Sat down. 4 hours passed. His legs cramped. His back ached. Sweat soaked through his shirt. But he didn't move. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Nero limped forward. Sniffed Vincent's outstretched hand. Took the meat gently between his teeth. Vincent's tears came silent and unstoppable. Watch his ears, Mia instructed. When they go back flat, he's scared. Forward means curious. See how Nero's breathing? Fast and shallow, he's anxious. Vincent studied them like scripture. Now go in. Alone. Vincent's hand trembled on the gate latch. Every instinct screamed danger. But he opened it anyway. Stepped inside. Dante charged. 140 pounds of muscle and memory. Closing fast. Every fiber of Vincent's being wanted to run, to fight, to control. He stood still. Dante stopped inches away. Sniffed. Circled. I'm sorry, Vincent whispered, his voice breaking. For everything I did to you. For not seeing. For being like them. Dante's tongue, rough and warm, dragged across Vincent's palm. Vincent throwing a tennis ball across the courtyard, laughing as Nero retrieves it with puppy-like enthusiasm. Vincent kneeling beside Nero's injured paw, gently wrapping it in gauze after a vet visit he personally arranged. Vincent lying on a blanket in the kennel at 2 a.m., guards watching in disbelief through the windows as both dogs curl against him. Dante's head on Vincent's chest. Nero's body pressed to his side. All three breathing in sync. Giovanni found Vincent in the courtyard on a Tuesday afternoon, playing tug-of-war with Dante. Boss takes orders from a little girl now? Giovanni's laugh was cruel. Vincent stood slowly. The coldness that had once ruled empires returned to his eyes, but with a different edge. That little girl knows more about loyalty than you ever will. His voice was ice. Leave. You're done. Giovanni's smirk died. You're firing me? Over dogs? No. I'm firing you because you mistake cruelty for strength. Get out. Giovanni left. The gate closed behind him. Dante pressed against Vincent's leg, a silent solidarity. 3 months after it all began, Mia sat with Vincent on the courtyard steps. Dante and Nero dozed in the late afternoon sun. They'll never forget what happened to them, Mia said softly. But now they know not everyone is like that. Is that enough? Vincent asked. Mia looked up at him, her grandmother's jacket bright against the fading light. It was enough for me when Grandma showed me. Now I show others. Vincent understood. Healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about proving the future could be different. But the story wasn't over. Because 3 months later, everything Mia had built would be tested in the most unexpected way, and prove that sometimes the broken things we heal end up saving us. 3 months had passed since Vincent became a student. Then the sirens came. Federal agents poured through the estate gates at dawn. Bulletproof vests, warrants, accusations of human trafficking that made Vincent's blood run cold. "I run a lot of things," he told the lead agent, hands raised. "But not that. Never that." They searched anyway. In the gardener's shed, behind bags of fertilizer and rusted tools, they found him. A 6-year-old boy. Filthy. Terrified. Silent. He'd been there 3 days. The new gardener, hired a month ago, background check clean, was part of a ring Vincent never knew existed on his own property. The boy bolted when officers opened the shed door. Ran screaming into the courtyard. Wild with fear. From the house, 2 black shapes exploded through an open door. Dante and Nero at full speed. "Shoot the dogs!" An officer yelled, weapon rising. "No." Vincent's voice cracked. Then Mia appeared, running from the kitchen where she'd been having breakfast. Vincent had hired Rosa full-time months ago, given them a room in the East Wing. Mia was family now. "Don't shoot," she screamed. "Watch." The dogs reached the boy first. Dante and Nero circled him, but didn't attack. They laid down on either side of him, massive bodies creating a living fortress around the trembling child. The boy's screams died to whimpers. His small hands grabbed Nero's fur, buried his face in it. Both dogs stayed perfectly still. Protective. Gentle. Officers froze, weapons lowering in disbelief. Mia walked slowly across the courtyard, her pink jacket bright in the morning sun. "Dante, Nero, stay gentle," she said softly. Neither dog moved. She knelt beside the boy. "You're safe now. These are the good ones." "The bad man," the boy sobbed. "He said dogs would eat me." Mia's hand touched his back. "These dogs know what bad men do. That's why they're protecting you." The boy looked up at Dante's scarred face, at Nero's gentle eyes, and something in him understood. On the balcony, Vincent turned to the lead agent, his voice steady despite the tears on his face. "I didn't traffic that child. But he was on my property. I'm responsible." He held out his wrists. "Take me in. But please, let that little girl and those dogs stay with him until he's calm." The agent stared at the scene below. At the dogs. At the girl. At the broken child finding safety in the most unexpected place. "Mr. Moretti," he said quietly, "I think we need to have a different conversation." The gardener was caught fleeing through the back fence. He confessed everything. Vincent was cleared. But what happened next became the image that broke hearts across the city. Dante and Nero walking beside the boy as paramedics led him to the ambulance. The boy clutching both their collars. Mia's hand on his shoulder. 3 survivors, walking together toward safety. The things we save end up saving others. As Vincent watched them disappear into the ambulance lights, he realized something that would define the rest of his life. But it would take one final conversation with Mia to understand what true power really means. 1 week after the ambulance lights faded, Vincent sat alone in his office as evening shadows stretched across the floor. Rosa and Mia appeared in the doorway, ready to leave for the day. "Mia," Vincent called softly, "can I ask you something?" She walked in, her pink jacket still too big, still bearing the weight of her grandmother's love. "Why did you risk everything for them?" Vincent's voice carried genuine wonder. "They could have killed you." Mia climbed into the oversized leather chair, her feet dangling above the floor. She looked small surrounded by the trappings of power, but somehow she made the room feel smaller, not herself. "Mr. Moretti, do you know why I wasn't afraid?" He shook his head. "Because I knew what it felt like to be them." Her voice was steady, clear. "When Papa left, I wanted to hurt everyone. I was so angry. The kids at school were scared of me. Teachers didn't want me in class. Everyone tried to fix me, control me, make me behave. Her voice cracked. But Grandma just sat on the floor with me while I cried. Every single night. For a year. She never tried to stop my anger. She just showed me I didn't have to stay angry forever. Tears pooled in her eyes. That's all Dante and Nero needed. Someone to sit in the dark with them. Vincent's throat tightened. He moved from behind his desk, knelt to her eye level. Something the most feared man in the city had never done for anyone. I've spent my whole life making people afraid of me, he confessed. I thought fear was respect. I thought control was strength. But you, an 8-year-old girl, taught me that real power is when someone chooses to trust you. His hand found hers, so small in his scarred palm. Thank you for teaching an old fool that it's never too late to become something better. Mia smiled through her tears. Mr. Moretti, broken things don't need to be fixed. They need to be loved until they remember how to be whole again. She squeezed his hand. You weren't fixing Dante and Nero. You were remembering how to be whole too. Vincent couldn't speak, could only nod. He stood, pulled an envelope from his desk, handed it to Rosa. Inside, a deed to a 3-bedroom house, paid in full. A college fund for Mia that would carry her through any dream she chose. Rosa's knees buckled. Mr. Moretti, I can't. It's not charity. It's payment. His voice was firm but gentle. Mia's taught me more in 3 months than anyone has in my entire life. He pulled out another document. I'm starting a foundation. For kids like that boy. And dogs like Dante and Nero. He looked at Mia. I want you to help me run it. When you're older. Mia's entire face lit up like sunrise. No fences remained in the courtyard. Dante and Nero played fetch with Mia, their tails helicoptering with joy. Vincent sat on a wooden bench, watching. Rosa brought lemonade, her face finally free of worry lines. The image was simple, profound. A former killer, a former victim, 2 former monsters, all at peace. People think strength is about how much you can control, but real strength is knowing when to let go. Real power is making someone feel safe enough to trust again. Dante and Nero didn't need a master. They needed a friend. And maybe that's what we all need. Someone who sits in the dark with us until we remember we're not the dark itself. Close-up of Mia's worn notebook, open to the last page. A drawing in colored pencil. Vincent, Rosa, Mia, Dante, Nero, all together, smiling. Title in child's handwriting, My Family. 6 months later, Vincent Moretti sold his criminal enterprises and dedicated his life to rehabilitating fighting dogs and helping at-risk children. The Moretti Foundation has since saved over 200 dogs and provided homes for 47 children. Dante and Nero lived peacefully on the estate for 8 more years. Mia is now 16 and runs the Foundation's youth program. Rosa never had to work 3 jobs again.
If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now. We're racing to 1,000 subscribers before this year ends, because stories like this matter. Stories about broken things becoming whole. About an 8-year-old girl who saw monsters and chose to see pain instead. Somewhere right now, there's someone who feels beyond repair. Someone who thinks they're too broken to be loved. Someone who's forgotten what kindness feels like. Subscribe. Share this with everyone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever been treated like Dante and Nero, punished for your pain instead of healed? Have you ever realized you became what you feared most? Who in your life needs someone to just sit with them in the dark? Vincent Moretti went from destroyer to healer. But it took nearly losing everything for him to change. Was that transformation real? Or will old habits return? Tell me in the comments. Tell me if this story made you want to give someone a second chance. Because that's what stories like this are for, to remind us that broken doesn't mean worthless. Subscribe now. Be part of something that matters. Will you?